pleased to welcome back to the Daily Faceoff Show Chris Peters for another edition of The Next Wave. And we've got, Chris is still smirking and laughing from our Kodak
Yeah, I
Black
can't
talk.
help it.
We've got some serious Olympic talk. The Olympics in Beijing just a few weeks away. USA Hockey and Hockey Canada scrambling furiously to get their rosters buttoned up and ready for Beijing. The two of us had tag teamed on an initial look at the USA Hockey roster from last week, and we'll have Alex throw that up there. But when you look at this group, and I know it's going to expand with the U.S. taking 25 players to Beijing, and you've got some insight on who some of those additional players might be from this list that we talked about last week. What struck me, Chris, is how many college hockey players are on it. Were you expecting there to be that many, or perhaps the USA Hockey leaning on some European and Russian pro players that are playing in those leagues over there?
Yeah, well, I'd say initially I was surprised at the number, but really this has kind of been the strategy once they knew that NHL players weren't going to be there, and part of that is because of the fact that part of that is because of the fact that when they went to the Olympics in 2018, their two best players were Ryan Donato and Troy Terry, two current college players. Jordan Greenway was also a key player for them as a college player. So what they learned was those players that are in college are closer to their NHL careers than the guys that are, have already had that opportunity. So, you think that inexperience and that youth would be a detriment. Well, really, they're actually closer to their prime years than most of the other players. So that is a huge reason that they are going with the college players. On top of that, they also know these guys really well from previous World Juniors. Look at Matty Beniers, Noah Cates, who played in the World Juniors. Nathan Smith, never played in the World Juniors, but has played in the USHL, and is his head coach, Mike Hastings, is now an assistance coach with Team USA. Matthew Nyes brings a lot of size, and he was really probably one of USA's top forwards at the last World Juniors before it got canceled. And then on the blue line, you can't find a better American defenseman than Jake Sanderson outside of the NHL right now, and he'll be a guy that plays a lot of minutes and probably a key player throughout the rest of the way for USA Hockey at multiple levels, because he's one of the best that they have right now.
Chris, coming north of the border here and talking a little bit about the Canadian roster, for a Canadian hockey fan who maybe doesn't know a lot outside the NHL in terms of players, who are you kind of expecting to take the reins as a key piece on this Canadian team, and what could maybe their strength as a group be?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tyler, because really, I think Canada is in a bit of a different position. They have a lot more guys that have NHL experience, that are playing abroad, that are more attractive. They have other guys like retirees, or not retirees, but guys that aren't playing currently, like Eric Stahl, and those are players that they can bring in. But I think that the key guys for this team, the most important player for this team is going to be Owen Power. So that's a guy that NHL fans know. He's probably going to be Canada's #1 defenseman. He's going to play a lot of minutes. He already proved at the last year's World Championships, the World Men's Championships, that he can play with pros, and that he can be a guy that can drive play and play over 20 minutes a game, and you don't miss a beat that way. I also think it sounds like Mason McTavish, who plays currently in the OHL, just got traded in the OHL, is going to be eligible because CHL players can't be called back up to the NHL after they've been sent down, except on an emergency basis. So if they get him, you watch how he played at the most recent World Juniors before it was canceled. You watch how he played with the Anaheim Ducks at the beginning of the season. You're like, wow, this guy can be an impact player right now. So I think that both teams are finding that they are going to lean on some of their younger players, in addition to a lot of those European pros and others that are going to kind of be more roster filler than necessarily the key players.
Chris, I think the big question everyone wants to know is, when you take a look at some of the players on the list that the US and Canada might be taking, can either of those countries be competitive?
I believe they can. The crazy thing is that there's no prep time. You basically get the team, you go to China, you practice, and then you play. And so that's one thing that I think is probably a detriment to more USA than any of the other teams, because there have been events like the Channel One Cup, which was contested in Russia. Canada even sent a team to that. So, they've had some opportunity to play with each other. So it's really about, can you get these guys to gel together quickly enough and compete? But you go back to 2018, and what was the gold medal game? Germany versus Russia, or the Olympic athletes from Russia, if you want to be technical about it. And who were the players that were driving play? Well, even for Russia, it was Kirill Kaprizov. It was Nikita Gusev. I mean, guys that had not yet played in the NHL, in addition to players like Pavel Datsyuk. So, that's kind of the thing that I'm fascinated by, is that, these younger teams very well could be even more competitive. And then you also look at that German team was about 56 seconds away from winning a gold medal, with only one guy that ended up playing in the NHL after that, Dominic Cahoon. And so I think it's possible. It's tough to say. I think goaltending is going to be an issue for both teams. That's one of the areas where I think there's less experience and then also less high end. But I think that's going to be an issue for every single country, because you're looking at older players, guys that are past the prime. I think USA is going in a younger direction for their goaltending, so that might be an advantage. But man, I'm telling you, I think that it's anybody. It's going to be a wide open tournament. I think anyone can win it. And if you can predict who's going to win this gold medal, I mean, I think Russia will go in as the favorites because of the experience that they have, but it's certainly not a guarantee that they're going to be the best team there.
Plenty of storylines to keep an eye on, and we will continue to do so over the next month here. Chris, appreciate the insight. This has been another edition of The Next Wave.